Hello and welcome to Crafting a Revolution, the podcast. My name is Katie Freeman and I am your host. Every Wednesday and Friday, I am bringing you interviews with female and non-binary makers of all kinds from all over the world. Today's guest comes from Jamaica and her name is Tamara Harding. She's actually not been doing this for too long, but she's super passionate about it. She says in Jamaica, she's known as the wood boss, which I really love that. But super inspirational about how she really just said, this is what I'm going to do, and went out and did it and has this hugely successful business now. So I think you all will find inspiration from it as well. But before we hop on into the interview with Mara, I want to give a big shout out and thanks to the patrons over on Patreon. So thanks so much, Annette of 513 Woodworks, Katie, Women in Woodworking, Kevin, Lefty's Woodshop, Christy, Twisted Twine, Jeremy Spies, Sammy, Go Sammy Lee, Sven, Dwarf Size Workshop, Rachel, Moody Makes, Bonnie, Tool Mom Bonnie, toolmomstore.com, Laura, Oakley Soap Company, Mary Lou, Made by Mary Lou, Brandy, Studio Obey, Lee, The Rainbow Carver, Ellen, Little Bear Furniture, and Ethan Carter Designs. Thank you all so very much for your continued and ongoing support, helping me to produce 2 episodes a week, every week. Now, if you want to get your name added to this list, you very much can. Just head on over to patreon.com/crafting a revolution and see how you can join up with the Revolution Pod Squad over there and get your name listed at the top of the episode for every episode. All right, with no further ado, here is Tamara Harding.
So Zoom doesn't like when I say where I'm from, but let's try one more time. So. Okay. I am from Kingston, Jamaica. I am Tamara Harding. I am a woodologist or woodpreneur, as I like to call myself. In Jamaica, I'm known as the wood boss or the wood whisperer. And I am 100% totally self-taught. I had no mentor, no uncle in the business, nobody to look to. And so everything that I have taught myself, or everything that I've known for the past 5 years or learned, it's from trial and error and experimenting. Lots of frustrating moments, banging my head against a tree, no pun intended. Are you there?
Yep.
Okay, awesome.
I was going to ask, how long have you been in the business, I guess?
So I decided to switch careers in 2014. I had owned and ran my own advertising agency, and it was doing pretty well, but didn't feel like that was really what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And certainly not, I wasn't going to build a legacy for myself and for my kids doing that. And I went in search at that time when I turned 40 in 2014. Went in search of what to do to feel like I was fulfilling my purpose, and had an aha moment that I would venture into the world of wood and to see what that would look like. And so I launched my brand in 2015, and that would be this November would make 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
What brought you to wood?
So I knew that I had wanted to go from left brain to right brain, right? So I knew that I wanted to hang up my business hat and get into my creative side, right? Which I kind of felt like I had suppressed it pretty much all my life up to that point. And so that Christmas, so this is 2014 now, that Christmas I decided to make Christmas decorations and just kind of get my creative juices flowing. And I flew up to Miami, went into Michael's and Target and Walmart and bought a whole bunch of Christmas decorations, and got back to Jamaica and made all of these really cool, what I thought were cool Christmas trees, just like tabletop, maybe most 24 inches high. And none of them sold. And I was like, this is not a good start. And I was like, you know what? I can't waste all this money and all these decorations. I have to figure something out. And I had a tree in my backyard that had lost all its leaves because it was just about to bloom. And it had all these sprigs and cool little branches. And I borrowed a saw and I started sawing them off. And I'm like, you know, I think I could make some cool stuff with this. Went on to Pinterest, looked up what they had, saw those, you know, those layered trees where they have the branches, right? So made a whole bunch of those and every one of them sold. And made some wreaths out of them too. And I was like, people are really digging this wood vibe. And I took every single dollar I made from the sale of those Christmas ornaments or decorations and went to the local still supplier and bought my first still saw, a small 17-inch bar. Bought a jigsaw only because I'd heard somebody mention jigsaw, didn't know one damn thing about a jigsaw. And what was my other thing that I bought? Was a jigsaw. See, I'm having one of those having one of those moments.
That's okay.
Life of a aging female.
That's right. But like, I mean, buying a still saw, like from not having anything, that's like a big
jump.
Leap. It is.
Big jump.
Yeah.
And I was too proud to ask any of the guys for help, right? So I took the saw. They're like, Mom, you need us to show you how to start it up. No, I'm good, man. I got this. And got back home, jumped onto YouTube, put the phone down, and learned how to operate the saw through YouTube. And then I had a friend that's in construction, and I called him up and I said, hey, have you by any chance taken any trees down lately for your construction projects? And he says, actually, I just took down a really big tree. They've already kind of cut it up to move it, but you're more than welcome to it. And I picked it up, got a truck man, went and picked it up. And then I used that first rescue tree to learn how to use the saw and how to carve with it. And that was really what set the tone for me, because at that point, I didn't know what I was doing, what my look and feel would be, what I was going to be making. I knew nothing. So it was knowing what I wanted to do and then allowing the process to unfold naturally. So when I was able to get this tree, then I learned about live edge and how to cut them and what to do with them. And that also set the tone for me to only use rescue trees. So now I don't use any tree unless it's slated to be felled or it's come down naturally from, oversaturation, heavy rains, hurricane, any sorts of natural disaster that's brought the tree down. We're in crazy expansion mode in the construction industry here, and so there's trees coming down by, I can't even tell you. It's actually really sad. And then we're also building quite a few highways across the island too, which again, a lot of trees are coming down for that. So I have been able to carve out a niche for myself because I'm the only person on the island that does that. Nobody else rescues trees. And so I was the first, and I'm still the only person here that goes to all of that trouble. And I mean, when I rescue a tree, it's an endeavor and a very costly one. I took down a massive willow tree 2 weeks ago, and it had been about a month of trying to get it out because it was right on a fence line in an apartment complex. And it was such a procedure to get it out. And I was so determined. I was like, we are getting this tree out. You're not going to cut it up and destroy it. And it costed so much to get that tree out. Yeah. And this tree must have been hundreds of years old. It was so heavy. And we ended up having to hire a massive crane truck to lift it out. And that's how I was able to get it. But, it's worth it in the end, because then I I feel like part of my purpose is to breathe new life into these majestic beings whose lives have now come to an end. And then I get to resurrect them, so to speak, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that totally resonates with me. I don't quite get the trees at the point you're getting them, but I work with a couple different local tree services. So when they are removing trees and they take back, big chunks of the trunks or like the bigger round pieces to their um, kind of to their site that they take them to, I'll work with them to try to get a few of those pieces. That's where I pretty much source all of my wood from as well.
Well, I always say that, when I get a call from just before I came on online with you, I got a message from another person to say that they have a massive tree in their complex, and he sees coming up to hurricane season now. So a lot of these complexes, townhouse and apartment complexes, want these trees pruned or some of them taken down because it poses a huge hazard to them. Mm-hmm. But I always tell people that I like to get it. I like to cut the tree myself because that's really where the magic starts. Mm-hmm. I can sit, with a tree and see how the branches the trunks are shaped and how one intersects the other, or there's a rounded curve, and I can look at it and I can see past what's in front of me and what it will become. And so how I cut it plays a massive role in being able to really pay proper homage to these trees.
I know you said you're all self-taught, but how did you get into like actually taking the trees down? Because that, I don't personally do that.
Okay. Yeah, I have a team. So that's one of the beautiful things about living on an island too. Labor is very accessible. So I have a crew that I use for that. There's no way that I'm felling a tree. I can't. So now I have every size chainsaw. Mm-hmm. And we use a 3-foot bar and the 4-foot bar quite a bit. I can't even crank the 3-foot and the 4-foot when it's filled with gas. It's just I can't even start it. It's just so heavy.
Yeah.
And I have an amazing sawman. He's he's so small, but he uses a chainsaw like he's buttering bread. It's so cool to watch him. And so I have over the years developed a really strong team of guys that work with me. And it's they allow me to be able to do what I do.
So, Hey makers. So today's podcast episode is sponsored in part by Alicia Van Osdal, who is the owner of Basil Blue Design Company. Alicia is a maker of all things, really. Her focus is on beautiful craftsmanship through woodworking, repurposing, refinishing, art, and sculpture. Her background includes 30 years of graphic design, logos, and branding. If you have an idea or concept and need a creative solution or graphic design, you can email Alicia directly at Alicia, and that is ALICIA @basilblue.com. Or you can visit her website at www.basilblue.com. And fun fact, Alicia actually designed the logo for Crafting a Revolution. So that is an example of the impeccable work you can expect if that is something you are in the market for. So be sure to look up Alicia again at her website, basilblue.com. All right, let's get back into the action. I found you on Instagram and kind of fell through the hole of your feed and watching all of your stuff. And you're doing massive pieces. And how did you get to a point, I guess, of being able to do this as a business and like sustain it?
Well, the good thing is that when I started, nobody was doing what I was doing, right? I was the first out of the block. And so that really gave me a jump start. because I filled a void that was, you know, that people embraced my work. And because I'm coming from owning my own advertising agency, the first thing I did before I even knew what I was going to be making was I had a brand. I knew what my stamp was going to look like. I knew what my name was going to look like. I knew what my logo was going to look like. I had my whole PR and marketing strategy. I knew how I was going to launch. I had all my numbers figured out. So that was a huge component that I had put in place in order to be successful, in order to make sure that I was on the right path and making the right steps. So the creative aspect of it fell into place because I had all the foundations put in place. And it's a huge part of the puzzle missing for a lot of creatives, because you don't find somebody that's typically left brain and right brain. And so they have to either rely on an outside entity that they have to hire, and who really has money to do that. In Jamaica, they have facilities set up that you can get grants for people to come and help you with your business plan. And I'm sure in the US they have those too. But that would be my first recommendation to anybody. Once they want to start getting into something, they have to have a proper business plan. And then so when I started with that foundation and I launched where I put together 100-piece collection, because nobody knew that I was doing this, right? It was just like, where did this come from? You know, the last we checked, she was running, you know, brands across the island. So I had to let people know that now I'm in this industry and I'm creating, and I was determined to create a wide range of products so that people would see that, one, these things are now available on the island. Two, that they can actually be manufactured on the island, because we are an import. Everything that everybody owns is imported, right? And we have full cable, full internet. So everybody sees what's going on in the US and everybody wants that, right? The West Elms and the typical Pier 1 imports and all of those type of things, right? But at the same time, they want so desperately for somebody local to step up and be able to offer products that they can feel proud of and want to purchase. So I gave them that. I made sure that every table I made, every bench, every light was to the utmost stringent, like, you know, leveled, finished. If there was anything out of place, you know, we had to make sure that everything was so perfect. So when I launched, people were just totally blown away at the finishes, you know, and I would be, because I wasn't taught, I would go into a restaurant and the first thing I'd do is I'd look under the table and I would take pictures and I would, you know, sketch out little things in my phone. I'm like, oh, so that's how they made the table and that's how they attached it. And that's what I would do a lot of the time. So when I launched, all of my legs were done in-house, all my finishing was done. And again, because labor is, you know, accessible here, I was able to hire a spray man, I was able to hire a welder. And so I didn't have to then become a perfectionist at all these other things. I could rely on people that were good in that field, but they were now part of my team and my crew to be able to give me that elevated standard of work. And then in getting into the bigger pieces, obviously posed a challenge because I didn't have a forklift. And I didn't have a pulley system. And so it's honestly, it's really, I can only just say it's a miracle. I just did 2 weeks ago, I just delivered a 15-foot vertical chandelier for a stairwell for a villa on our East Coast. And I haven't even seen it erected because I had nowhere to hang it. I'm like totally blind here. Like I'm working on a horizontal surface on something that's going to be hung vertically. And so I'm like constantly like bending over, and I'm like trying to figure out in my head, okay, is that going to hang right? Is it going to look right when the light turns on? Is it going to reflect onto the stair? It's such like,
Yep.
you have to do some guessing, and you have to show that you're totally in control and you know all of what you're doing to the client when you really have no clue.
Right.
You fake it till you make it.
That's right. So, I mean, with the marketing background, I mean, did you go to school for that, or was that also self-taught?
No, I went to college in Oakville, Ontario, so very close to downtown Toronto, and I studied retail management. So I didn't yeah. But my husband has been in the marketing industry for quite some time, and he wanted to go from being the marketing manager, marketing director at these companies to owning his own agency and being on the other side. And so he and I started the agency together. But because I'm very left brain, and I'm very organized and systematic and good at math and good at accounting. I served that role in the agency. And then my husband served the role of client services. So he would go and he would do the pitches, and then he'd come back and I would do the help with the graphic, sit with the graphic artist, make sure everything looked right. And so so there was a dynamic between the both of us, but definitely nothing that I studied.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking while you're saying you started with like a line of 100 pieces, and all that's showing up in my mind is dollar signs, knowing how expensive it is.
I'm so glad you asked that. I'm so glad you mentioned that. So I'm going to tell you another story, right?
Okay.
So when I decided to launch, I wanted to do it. I did it at my house, and I wanted to create like a Disney World attraction effect. So where you go in one way, you go around and you come out, you come out through the store always, right? So I wanted to do something like that. So I created this massive entrance out of two massive trunks, right? So one trunk was the entrance table, and then I had a light fixture over it on trussing. And then I wrote to Samsung, and I said, hey, this is what I'm doing, and I want you guys to sponsor me. And Samsung said yes. First of all, they didn't have the option to say no, because I was going to camp out outside of their offices until they said yes. and I got the yes. So I had 3 Samsung tablets at the entrance that people had to sign in and log in. And then they went from there into a tent. And then they had the silent headphones. They had just come out with them. And Samsung gave me this huge flat screen TV. And the guests sat down and watched a video that was produced 100% on my Samsung phone. And it was a video of showing me getting into this woodworking, showing me working on the pieces, and just basically introducing my story to these people. And then once they watched that, it was like a 4-minute video, very, very short. Once they watched that, then they would get up and then they would go around to the backyard. And that's where I had now all my pieces displayed. Well, the big pieces, the dining tables, the benches, the coffee tables, that sort of thing. And everything was on its own little platform. Then they went from the backyard into the main house, and the house was now converted into a full store. So I had charcuterie boards, lights hanging, like you name it. I had everything in there. And then they exited now through, I had a friend that had an art gallery. So I made her bring in all paintings of trees. And so they exited through a gallery with just all of these trees, right? And I told a story about how everything is sustainable, and that all the trees are rescued. And that's how they ended. Needless to say, when I launched, I think I had about $2 in my bank account. And I leveraged every relationship I had. So because I was in the advertising agency, we did a lot of executions for our clients. I called up a lot of those suppliers and I said, listen, I have no money, but I need a tent. I have no money, but I need trussing and lighting. I have no money, but I need a sound system, like to play music. And then I got another brand to donate wine, so that when people came, they were given a glass of wine. And so it was just leveraging relationships and promising them that I'm sure something is going to sell and I'll pay them after the show. And so that was very nerve-wracking. And what I did was I selected, it ran Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So I had it 3 days in a row. And each day I invited a certain sector of society. So like the first day were the politicians and, you know, the heads of state and some other people. And then the next day was, you know, maybe the influencers and more the business people. And then the third day were just, you know, other people. So I chose different demographics for each day, and they all got they got invitations delivered by hand. And then I did this on the Friday. They got their invitations on the Friday, and that Sunday I had the local newspaper do triple spread on me. So when they got the invitations, they're probably like, what is this? Right. And then they picked up the newspaper on Sunday and saw the full spread on it. So needless to say, everybody showed up to the launch. And so again, that was my whole marketing and PR background, knowing how to get people's interest peaked.
Right.
And so it was really, there was a lot of effort put into it, and I never slept for about a month. And that was just the back end stuff. You know, I'm also in the workshop making all of these things, you know, but because I had a background in marketing and events, I was able to execute the event at the same time as creating all of these pieces. Wonder Woman activate.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, it's just like, to be frank, I'm blown away by that story, because it's just, I feel maybe, especially with, especially for women, I don't think a lot of us feel like we have the right to do what you did. To say like, no, what I'm doing is important, and, you know, I'm going to sell myself, and what I'm making is great, and people need to be aware of. Like, I don't feel like, maybe it's just personally, but I don't think a lot of us do a good job of really pushing ourselves out.
Self-promoting.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, that could be a whole training session right there, you know, just in how to brand yourself. And, you know, maybe that's something you've done already, but, you know, it's so important. And then, you know, because we're on a small island, people watch what I do. And I do have a lot of people trying to get into the same industry now that I'm in. And my brand, my stamp that I stamp all of my furniture with is just a big M and a little m in cursive. And it's deliberate, because a Nike is a swoosh. Adidas is, you know, this pyramid, a triangle with the 3 stripes. And, you know, I felt that it was important that it wasn't my name or, you know, anything like that. And people don't understand that aspect of it. So even the people who are getting into live edge furniture, you know, they're stamping their full name with a phone number underneath, or a version of their name. And it's just, there's a whole science to building a brand, and it's something that you have to be super patient about. It doesn't happen overnight. I will sometimes wait a whole entire year or more to post a particular piece, because I feel like the timing isn't right, or I know that I need to develop the story a little bit more. And so, you know, building a brand and building a successful business is certainly not something that can just happen overnight. It takes a lot of work and a lot of back-end planning.
Hey, Revolution Pod Squad. This week's episode is brought to you in part by me, your host, Katie Freeman. I am super excited. I just released my very first virtual training course on how to add bright, bold, and beautiful colors to your woodworking project. I love doing it with my stuff because I feel like it just kicks it up a notch and really makes those projects stand out from the crowd. So if that sounds like something that you would like to do, learn how to add some bright, bold, beautiful colors to your woodworking projects with simple household items, then go ahead and head on over to freemanfurnishings.com, scroll to the bottom of the homepage and get your name added to the wait list. Add a little note, say you want to be added in with the wood stain Rockstar course, and I will make sure to get that link over to you. All right, let's head right back on in with the episode. Yeah, and I mean, again, probably totally speaking for myself, like when I got into doing this and basically I wanted to have the dream of making my own pieces and people come and buy my own designs. You know, I have no business background, absolutely none. And so I got into social media just because it's like, well, I have to have a way for people to find me,
right.
To know what I'm doing. But there was no forward thought put into how does that get put out there and what does that look like? And over time it's morphed. And now I feel like I have a thing, right? It's like I have my niche and I have that thing, but I definitely need to rebrand myself. But I'm thinking from there, I learned some lessons that like in things that I'll be coming out with towards the end of this year and new ventures, like I've learned that, like, right, I've already been working 6 months on how that brand's going to look and what it's going to be like and what it's going to say and understanding all of that. Like I have a business plan for that, but I don't have a business plan for my creative business at all. And so I don't, and I feel like other people I've interviewed for the podcast, a lot of times it's, you know, they start by making things for themselves and then family and friends see it and say, hey, can you make me such and such? And so it's just very organic and still there. They never go through the process of figuring out a brand or a business because it just happens organically.
It happened organically from the beginning.
Yeah,
I get that. You know, this has been a very interesting conversation because it's leading me to think that maybe there's a need to be able to put something together to help women cross through into that space of figuring out their back end part of their business so that they can focus on the front end. And I tell you something, like for me, even having done all of that, right? And I wear about 15 hats. I wear pretty much every hat in the business, right? So procurement. So if I need, you know, lag screws, sandpapers, any sort of supplies, I'm the one that has to go to the hardware store to get it, right? Or buy it online and ship it in. I'm the accountant. I am the customer liaison officer. I am, you know, I am my team member's boss. I am the creator. I'm everything. I wear every hat. And what it has prevented me from doing is really expanding and growing. And, you know, I get a lot of requests for my furniture all over the world. And I can't even go there. Like I can't even satisfy my local market, much less even think about, okay, exporting, that means I have to get registered as an exporter. I have to go through all these things, right? And then so even just today, coming here, before coming on here with you, I had a meeting with a manufacturer that has a amazing facility, and they have every machine you can possibly think of. They have 2 massive CNC machines. They have everything. I mean, a powder coating machine for the metal legs, and it's endless. They have their own reupholstering section. They have their own metal section. They have their own spraying section. They have their own lighting engineer that puts in all of their lights and all of their plugs and all of their things into their pieces. And I'm just like, my head is spinning out of control because I'm just like, what would I do with all of this, you know? And so I'm now at a point where I'm looking at possibly going into or having them absorb my business, where I can then now be a part of a bigger picture and have all of those things taken care of. So I can just be the creator and the designer.
Yeah.
And they can deal with the exporting, and they can do with, the logistics, the transportation, and all of those things. And another big part of my issue is, because there's so many trees needing to be rescued, I've run out of space. I have nowhere to put them.
Yeah.
And they have the space, and so I'm also now in that same, I'm at a crossroads where I'm like, okay, am I going to continue as this little artisan, this little, Jamaican girl doing her little one-off pieces, or am I going to really, turn the corner here and become more international and more accessible? And so as a creative, going through the process, you're gonna get to junctions that you're gonna have to cross as your business expands and grows. And once you go from something organic, doing it for your friends and family, and it now becoming a legit business, then you say, okay, wait a second, I'm crossing over into a whole new territory. Does this mean now I have to go into trade shows? There's a show coming up in Vegas in 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know if anybody's going to that. It's a big woodworking conference in Vegas, right? So a couple of us from Jamaica are going, and so now you're like thinking like, okay, do I need to attend some of these shows? Do I need to be an exhibitor? Do I need to, and so you have to keep moving that needle. You have to keep expanding and growing and really reaching for things that are out there that maybe 6 months ago you weren't even in that space to even think about it. So you just have to keep expanding.
Yeah. Did you see this as like where it was going to go? I mean, from the get-go?
Again, because I had done a business plan, and in the business plan was 1 year, 2 year, and 5 years. My philosophy and my way of thinking is nothing is off limits, right? So from the very beginning, I declared that I wanted to be the Martha Stewart of woodworking in Jamaica. Like I wanted to be able to create a brand that was recognized internationally. Right. And so that was always my focus and my goal. And it's not that I wake up every day, I'm like, okay, today I'm going to be Martha Stewart. I'm on my way. It's not like that. Like, it's just like, I put it on paper and I know that deep down inside somewhere. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And so it was in the business plan, and it was in the back of my subconscious then, that I did want to aim extremely high and just be very patient and have things unfold organically. And even with it unfolding organically, know that there's going to be some crossroads that I'm going to have to be like, do I go left? Do I go right? Do I continue straight? And like, for instance, after the launch, what ended up happening was I was starting to get a whole lot of custom orders, and I was expanded very fast, and I brought on a lot of guys to work for me, and I was so miserable because now I wasn't just a creative, I was all of these guys' boss.
Right.
And being a female in a man's world, taking instructions from a woman, very difficult. And I had a lot of resistance, and I felt like I was swimming upstream every day. And one day I woke up and I said, I'm not doing this anymore. This is not fun. This is not feeding my soul. And I basically just asked them to, in a nice way, not come back to work on one day. And I kept 2 guys, and I felt so alive again. And then you tend to, as time passes, you get back down into that rut. And so I've had to kind of, again, just recognize that things have kind of gone a little bit astray and pull them back in. So with COVID last year and everybody not sure of what was going to happen with the economy and how things were going to progress, every single person that called my phone, I took their job. right? I was not saying no to anything.
Right.
And by the time December rolled around, I was so burnt out. And I declared again in January, I said, no more custom work. I'm just going to get back to what I was doing when I launched, which was just making stuff and putting them out as a collection. And then if people came and they saw something they liked, they just bought it.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the other piece too, right? Like, I feel like in this creative space, people are more inclined to ask for custom work instead of necessarily buying something you've already created. And especially if you're in a space, like you said, like with the pandemic, where you're scared of like what's to come, you take the custom work because that's still at least like putting food on your table. But
exactly,
you know, you can't always have your ideal of like having customers come ready to buy what you've produced.
It's a hard dance.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah. I mean, is, I guess, your hope then, looking at this, you know, possible new venture with like the manufacturing type of facility, would be to maybe, I don't want to say mass produce, but be able to produce more of your own work, like the customs
Right.
would completely go away.
Right. So I when I had the meeting today, I said, just one thing I need to let you know, I'm not doing custom work. So I'm not coming here to start custom work. I said, that chapter has closed and it will not ever get open again. Because I had a customer, I'll give you a small example. Like 3 days ago, a lady messaged me and said, hey, I need a dining table, 8.5 feet by 8.5 feet. And she started listing off all her requirements. And I stopped her and I said, thank you so much for choosing, you know, Mara Made, but I'm no longer doing custom work. I am making and I am selling. And I'm confident that when I'm finished, you'll see a table that you like. And then her response was, okay, as long as it's 8.5 by 8.5 and it has blue resin in the middle and it has wooden legs, because I'm by the sea and I don't want metal. I was like, okay, so it's very hard. People have a hard time when you tell them, no, I'm not doing custom work, right? They still try and get it in. And so I'm definitely not doing that. I mean, just in the conversation alone, I ended up spending half an hour of my time, and I'm not even making this table for this lady, you know? And that's what happens when you have custom work. She wanted me to drive 2.5 hours across the island just to come and look at her space. Now, if I was to do that with everybody, when would I ever be able to create?
Right.
You know, and so yes, with this facility, it will allow the manpower. Like, for instance, they have a massive belt sander that can sand a table that's, I think their capacity is 3 feet wide by 4 inches thick.
Oh wow.
That's a big deal for me.
Right. Yeah.
I can't even tell you the amount of time it takes me to sand down a table.
Oh yeah.
You know, and so right. So they have the capacity now to allow me to finish my pieces a lot quicker. It will bring the cost down. So the consumers will benefit for it in the end, because where I have to, you know, add in all of the labor costs, now that's going to be significantly less. But it will still end up being made to be sold. So, you know, I have this same lady was like, okay, fine. Well, I ship in furniture from Bali and Indonesia all the time, so I guess I'll just do that. And I said, well, what's the difference? If I'm going to be manufacturing and selling just like a Bali and Indonesia, then why not come and see what I have that you may like, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and I tell you that once you declare what you're doing and you put the right energy to it, people will come. And I've found in the past that anything that I make, somebody inevitably walks through the door and says, oh, wow, that's exactly what I wanted. Or that was exactly what I was looking for, you know? And so I just have the faith that I know that once I'm creating from my happy place, which is my soul, and I am, sustainably making these pieces. This factory is 100% solar.
Mm-hmm.
Every single thing, every machine is run from solar energy, which is a big deal for me.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that just, it's a fear that people have, but I tell people to just trust the process. If you're making from your soul and you know what you're doing is good work, people are going to want it. They're going to come and they're going to support you.
Hey makers, today's episode is sponsored in part by toolmomstore.com. At toolmomstore.com, you can find any and all tool-based merchandise for all genders, all sizes. They've got mugs, they've got shirts, all kinds of cool stuff. I have one of the shirts myself that has the hashtag Woodwork her on it. And I also have a couple of the mugs that define what and who is a tool chick. So super excited with the merchandise that I have. I know that you will be satisfied as well. And also great discount for those of you who listen to the podcast. At checkout, if you enter the code MAKERMOM, you will get a 20% discount off any of the merchandise that you buy. So that's just toolmomstore.com. All right, let's head back into the action. Yep. Do you have a showroom space for your pieces?
Well, it's something that we spoke about today. So what my plan is for the first collection is to find like a nice great house or some sort of monumental place that that I can use as my showroom for the collection. So it won't be a permanent showroom. It will be something set up for the show.
Okay.
And pull down maybe after 2 weeks. And then we'll look at it. We decided today when I met with them that we would let that organically unfold as well. Because to have a permanent showroom in itself is a whole different beast again, because now you have a retail establishment that you have to staff up and make sure you have enough people coming through, and so we'll see.
So currently, how are people finding your work then?
So where I am now, where I'm set up now, they can come and see the work that I'm doing. When I move to this new location, it will be accessible only when the collection is ready. Okay. Yeah. So it's also creating a demand for your products too. When you're too accessible, then it diminishes the brand value.
I want to talk briefly just about costing and like how you've figured out how to, what to charge for your work.
So that's a very good question, because if I was in the US, I could be getting and commanding a lot more money than I am here on the local market, in the local scene. And even though a lot of the people that buy my work are foreigners that are here and they own villas and they own houses here, they feel that once they arrive on a plane and they're on Jamaican soil, that they shouldn't be paying what they'd be paying if they were in LA or New York or, So that part has been, something that you have to swallow and accept, unfortunately. But what I do is I have developed over the couple of years where I plug in all of my costs. So if I rescue a tree, I will know now that particular tree, because of the size that it is, will yield me about 100 pieces. Right? And that 100, and my motto is no wood left behind. So, I will make pieces as small as this cuff, or this ring. So there's very little wastage. So I will do a calculation as to how much pieces I'll be able to get out of it. And then I add in a spreadsheet all of my variables. So what it costs for the truck, what it costs for the sawman, what it costs for the oil. And I place all of my costs into a spreadsheet. And then I know how to proportion it now based on what I'm making. So I may put a number to a table. So if the table is huge, then I will give it a 10. If it's a small bracelet, I'll give it a 1. And so I know based on the number that it has at the end of it, how much of the back end costs go to that table. Then I also factor in the label. And then there's the actual value of a table. So if I know that my competitors are selling tables from Indonesia or tables that they have gotten a woodworker to put together, and it's most of my tables are only single slab, right? I do hardly do any joining. And the only time I will do a table with 2 pieces is if it's a river with the resin in the middle or glass. Typically it's 1 slab. So if I go out and I research and I see that a dining table is being sold for $1,500 US, but it's a table that has 4 planks, glued together, and it's the whole thing is just totally different. I can use that now to gauge what my work should go on the market for. And then once I see what my costs come out to, then I'll be able to say, okay, you know what? My costs ended up at $600 US. I can mark it up and get $1,800 for this table. But that's something that I've had to develop over time. And I have some loss leaders. So my charcuterie boards do very well, and because they're small items that move very fast. But all of my charcuterie boards are cut from a chainsaw and planed down with a hand planer, and then grinded and then sanded, and then it's a whole process, right? It takes a lot of time to make one charcuterie board. So I don't make a lot of money off of them, but they're such a popular item, and it keeps my brand presence in people's mind, and so you have to have a few loss leaders in that respect too.
Yeah. I appreciate you breaking that down for us. And I'm keeping track of the time. So I want to make sure that I give you the opportunity to let people know like how they can find you and your work and follow along with what you're up to.
So the main account is Mara.Harding on Instagram. I don't have a YouTube channel. I just find it, again, because it's a one-man show, it's so difficult to run so many different social media outlets. So I've stuck to the one that works the best for me, which is Instagram. And I tell a lot of my story and my journey through the Mara.Harding account. And then my finished pieces are at Mara, Mara, Made, Made Designs on Instagram as well. So I have 2 business accounts. The personal one showing my journey and where I answer a lot of questions. And I'm going to be doing a question and answer thing every Thursday where somebody can send me a question, and I'll post it on my feed on a Thursday so that other people can benefit from it too. Because I feel like a big part of my journey is to help others to become successful in their own way. To find their purpose and to become successful, not necessarily just woodworkers or women or, people that are in the woodworking industry, just anybody who feels like they want to step over and get into their purpose. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll include the links to both of those in the show notes so people can find you and follow along with you. And
thank you very much for that.
Thanks for taking the time to chat with me today.
Yeah, I love when these podcasts kind of go organically, because I haven't done a lot, right? So I've been interviewed a lot, but this is only my 3rd podcast that I've ever done, and but the 2 that I did before were both so different, and even though you touch on some of the same points, it still ends up going in its own direction. Yeah. And I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like to I have some guests, who get maybe a little nervous when I don't have like a set of questions that I provide in advance, but I prefer it to be a conversation and to let it kind of flow, where it's naturally supposed to land.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
Okay, so that was Mara Harding, and I will include the links on how you can follow along with her and see all the amazing pieces that she's creating in the show notes for today's episode. So easiest way to find those is in the description on your podcast app for the episode, or if you're watching this on YouTube, just check out the description down below. If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button. If you've been enjoying for a while, I'm going to ask for a huge favor. Please share with a couple of your friends about the podcast. Spread the word, because I want to hit a 10,000 download month. We're averaging about 2,500 downloads per month right now. And so I need your help, Revolution Pod Squad. Send you out into the forces and see if you can drum up and share with some fellow makers about the podcast and let them get to hear these amazing stories that I'm quite frankly humbled to be able to bring to you all, and so happy to be able to bring them to you all as well. All right, so when I am not interviewing fantastic guests and making podcast episodes, you can find me designing and making furniture and other home decor at freemanfurnishings.com and at Freeman Furnishings across pretty much all the social media. I'm active on a daily basis, though, over on Instagram, so you can come check that out. All right, it is the middle of the week. I hope you're having a fantastic week so far. And as always, let's go craft a revolution.
Got something they wanna say. Solution for the toxic masculinity. Pollution is the constant evolution of a broken institution.